In my last video, I showed you a little bit of the town of Ellinwood and did some shopping at the Ellinwood Emporium. I'll link that video up above if you missed it. In this episode, we will journey below Main Street to take an amazing underground tunnel tour for a small glimpse of preserved passageways showing what frontier life was like when Ellinwood was a booming town. Ellinwood, Kansas lies along the famous Santa Fe Trail. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad arrived to the area in 1872. The community was settled around 1878 by German Protestant immigrants. These historic underground tunnels date back to the late 1800s. It is believed that the surge of German residents may have influenced the construction of the tunnels, as the buildings above resembled European designs and the tunnels were built to escape the Kansas sweltering heat and the contrasting frigid winter temps. An array of shops that once were housed in the tunnel ranged from shoe shops, a meat store, and the sample room, which was a merchandise room where salesmen from the train could display their wares for sale. At the turn of the 20th century, when coal was still delivered by horse and wagon, the wooden sidewalks above the tunnels were lifted, coal was dumped in, and the underground store owners could take the coal as needed. Decades later, the tunnels even came in handy running bootleg alcohol during Prohibition years. By the mid-1930s to early 1940s, the tunnels had fallen into disuse and were closed off to the public.
And probably the tunnels went at least a half a block on each corner, because pictures show some sidewalks or stairways going down this way, and also when you go into the basements of like this building, you can see where the windows were and some doorways. So it's very little written about it. It was just the way it was. You know, they didn't write articles about it in the paper until 40 years after they started filling in the tunnels.
You go down all the way for that. No, I have to. I've already been down there all the way for that.
That's so you,
This?
yeah, that's so you could sharpen both sides of the blade at one time. Yeah, specifically designed to sharpen that type of blade. So this, feel free to have a seat on the benches if you want to sit down. This is Tom Drake's harness shop, and he was here in 1887. Our foundation walls all the way down Main Street are this sort of pinkish colored limestone. By the color of the stone, we think that it was quarried up around La Crosse, Kansas.
Whoa.
That's about 60 miles from here, so imagine it was all hauled in on the back of a wagon. From street level up, our current buildings are Ellinwood brick, and then all this wood you see down here was probably hauled in from the Rocky Mountains. Sorry, I didn't realize you weren't here. If you look at how long and straight and beautiful that lumber is, you know right away those trees did not grow in Kansas anywhere. When the Teamsters would get down to New Mexico, they would sell off their trade goods, and they'd hitch two wagons together and load them full of lumber, and that way they had a product they could sell on their way back to Missouri. There used to be a window right up there, and then down on our front wall were two windows, one on each side of the door. The windows were for ventilation. They would have had a coal burning stove in here to keep it warm in the wintertime, and they always would have had oil burning lanterns like the one next to the door down there for light down here. And so they needed to have some ventilation and air movement down here. If you look over in that corner, you can see a water pump. When the Germans got here, they realized they'd been lied to, and it does get cold in Kansas. So put the wells down in the basement, and that way they don't freeze. Almost everything in this room is original. Tom Drake worked down here until 1920. When he retired, he tried to sell the harness shop, but nobody wanted it because automobiles had pretty much taken over by then. So he sold off his merchandise and walked off and left all of this stuff. Adriana's grandfather never re-rented the basement, so she found this in the 1960s when she inherited the building from her uncle. We even have our original electric wires up here. It's called knob and tube wiring because of those porcelain tubes that the wires run through. Please don't touch it. We are still using it. It probably came in about 1910. The room above us is where the Bank of Ellinwood was located, but in 1894, they moved across the street to the Wolf Hotel. When they moved out, Adriana's grandfather invested in the first telephone company. So those wires running along the wall over there are the original telephone lines into Ellinwood. And where that nest of wires is right up there by that light is where the switchboard was up in the room above us. And my computer and phone are still hooked to those wires today.
Adriana fought to save a short stretch of Ellinwood tunnels and left 3 of the underground businesses intact, showing what they would have looked like a century ago.
So this was.
You put your cards in.
Yep, and then open it, yep.
And now we're going to go into the computer.
Branding wheel, where it says classic. You write it and then turns the wheels. And you sharpen your axe or whatever.
Bless you.
A double swing motor.
Prairie anchor for horses.
Oh, that's the harness.
That's the, keep the flies off. Oh, the house.
Yeah.
Which table do you want? You want the portable or the non-portable?
Cooling tables from the local mortuary. This one's folding up. You can fold it up and take it with you.
Okay, so we are underneath the sidewalk here. So this tunnel went that direction for 2 blocks. It would have looked just the same over on the other side of the street. The tunnels were divided down the center by these brick walls. And you can see there are doors all the way down. Actually, there are 5 doors. This side of the tunnel had walls that made these small lockable rooms. This is where the merchants would store their coal. We had 5 merchants in the building, so we had 5 doors and 5 storage rooms. They would pry up the wooden sidewalk, dump the coal down here, and then nail the sidewalk back down to a wooden beam that sat on top of the wall. Okay, so you can sit in those 2 chairs here beside the card table if you like. This is William Jung's barber shop. Mr. Jung was a German man. His last name was spelled J-U-N-G. He had an eye shop with hardwood floors. The wainscoting around the walls was all milled cypress wood. You can see that the upper paper, there would have been lanterns hanging all around the room, so it would have been nicely lit. I want you to think about riding into Ellinwood in 1900 and it's 10 degrees outside and the wind and the snow are blowing and you're cold and wet and miserable, and you come down here and he's got a fire going in the stove, and you can get yourself a cigar or some tobacco here and have a smoke, and you can get a shot of whiskey or a glass of beer, play cards, and dry off and warm up, and then get a haircut and a shave. You can even get your boots polished. Would have been real nice. And In the summertime, it's about 15 degrees cooler down here than outside, so it was welcoming in the summer as well. Arm your leg, it was getting. These are just like our electric clippers. Those of you up close here can probably still hear the blades. You know what they call these? Cut one, pull three. Yeah, me too.
I pull more than just three.
I have actually talked to barbers about these things, and they told me that you had to have a rhythm. You had to squeeze the handles and move your hand at just the right speed to keep the hairs from getting snagged in there. And my mom did not have that rhythm, I'll tell you. But he'd give the cowboy a haircut and a shave, and he'd be talking to him, and he'd say, well, what are you going to do now when you're done here? And the cowboy would say, well, I'm going right through that tunnel over there to Weber's Saloon. I'm going to have myself some drinks and play cards. And if I don't lose all my money in the card game because I drank too much, I'm going to go up to the hotel later tonight, and I'm going to rent a room, and I'm going to sleep in a bed. I've been sleeping under my wagon for weeks now, and Mr. Young says, well, that sounds like a plan. He says, but there's a problem. Our hotel is not going to rent you a room. The guy says, what do you mean they're not going to rent me a room? Mr. Young looks at him and he says, when did you have a bath last? He says, you smell terrible. It's a nice hotel and they got clean towels and sheets. He says, you got to get yourself cleaned up first. And today is your lucky day, because I own the bathhouse too. So. This is William Young's bathhouse. You will notice it is also the Ellinwood steam laundry. Being a good businessman, he put the laundry right in here, and then he could charge these guys money to wash their clothes for them while they're here too. He actually had a contract with the Ellinwood School District and did their laundry down here. Originally, there probably were about 10 of these tin tubs. In 1909 is when the city put up our water tank that we still have out there today. That's when plumbing came into the building, so that's when the claw-footed tubs and the porcelain sinks showed up. Now, a bath cost 15 cents. You'd get a half a tub of warm water and a bar of lye soap and a clean towel, so it was a pretty good deal. But our old cowboy says, I'm not paying you 15 cents for a bath. I just told you I'm headed to the saloon to have a beer. Beer costs a nickel, and I'd rather have 2 beers than a bath. And Mr. Young says, well, you just told me you wanted to stay at the hotel tonight. He says, I guess I could give you a deal. You can have a 5-cent bath, but you got to use dirty water and somebody else's towel. So we have a sign over there on the wall that says hot baths, first water 15 cents, used water 5 cents. Wash between the floorboards. Over in the barber shop, we have spittoons around the room, but we didn't need them in here. We've got wide, thick boards so they won't warp. As long as the wood stayed wet all the time, it didn't rot. And the lye soap kept termites and fleas and mice and other critters away from the building. You may have noticed the money over on the bed. It's not what you think. We get ghost hunters down here all the time, and they try to tempt the spirits to make an appearance with their dollar bills. And then they leave the money on the bed so the spirits won't follow them home. So I just leave the money on the bed so they won't follow y'all home too. So that's
Nothing in the general part.
Wouldn't believe it, would you?
Even if you don't, it would take a long time. Yeah, and well, and those stones, so all of that, I mean, it's in the middle of the desert, so they had to, how many, like hundreds of miles, they had to bring it. They were out like, they didn't even have animals there. I think this was smart, yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily right there, was it?
Where the old saloons and banks and things used to hang out.
The basement is the other part.
Yeah, okay, so it has been a little.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, he's got people still back there. Yeah, he'll come back to this. That's the only way to get out. Oh, I see.
Hi. How are you? I'm wonderful, thanks. Oh, you're fine.
But I didn't know it. Yeah, they're not bad. They're quite healthy. Got everybody? All right. No. She's still taking pictures. So at one point in time, there's about 25 rooms that they lent out, but everything falls in disrepair and time progresses. That's been knocked down. That's where the Sunflower Bank and parking lot is today. My mom was there the night that that happened. So yeah, big shock. She said, Mom has passed on. We always knew the story, but she said anything to us about it. We were looking through a chest of hers and found the newspaper article and picture we want to donate to the hotel. So a week later, she donates this to the hotel. This year, we celebrated 100 last year. They opened with a live orchestra. We had a live orchestra, served band dinner, and Easter decorations. So it was pretty neat to be part of the centennial. So it does have the original terrazzo flooring. The tin ceiling is original. The lighting fixtures are original, and our favorite is the wheat and sunflower cast. Those are original as well. Dinner, we do all kinds of events here. We do wedding showers, baby showers, murder mystery dinners, prom. We'll sit him right here. So I always ask everybody if he's behaving himself. They always tell me he's quiet, so there's that. And at least he went out in style. It's a pretty nice dining room. So we're gonna go downstairs now.
Over the door on the other side, what does that say?
It says, mark well the time the active should rest. And Chris told me there used to be a family crest in between there. Mark well the time the active should rest.
I think it's pretty young to a family reunion here, and they had a family crest about Scottish. So they had one sitting up at our reunion. I'm like, what? We have a crest? I didn't know that. And then my second ex-husband told me that he has a family crest as well. He told
Oh, yeah, no, not, because it's Great Bend and,
Ellinwood and I'm going to have it up really close to read it. So I'm going to read it. Forgot the phone. Forgot the phone.
That's it right there, phone.
So that stained glass window door at the top of the stairs actually has a knocker on the other side, so you can knock, say your code, head down to the speakeasy. So every Friday and Saturday night, our patrons come through the door, down the stairs, into the tunnels and into the saloon, just like you would in Prohibition days. I always tell people you don't have to knock or say your code anymore, thankfully for alcohol being legal, you can just come on down. Okay, thank you.
watch this. There's a step here. There's a step here.
Am I supposed to say that to you guys? There's a step here.
Yeah, I'm good.
Alright, everybody, so now you're under the sidewalk, running this direction is Santa Fe, so this is actually the highway. You could have kept going this way, under Santa Fe over to the train depot, this direction. This actually used to be where the 5th jail was located. I actually read 5th jail, so this bricked up door and window, that's where it would have been at. Straight across, you actually would have ran into Rick in the barber shop. Or you could have curved around and headed north and you would have seen storefronts like this one. This is not what this would have looked like, however. This is actually all proofed up by Beth. This is actually called the drummer's room. This is where they would have barrels of merchandise they would take off the train, bring in here and stack up. So merchants can come and get their items and sell it to their patrons, so wholesale basically.
Look at the bridal doll houses.
Oh my goodness.
Look at these boots. Can you imagine wearing those?
If you want to sit on the benches, you can. They are sittable. You're more than welcome to.
Just trying to get out of the way.
Do you guys remember the brick wall on the other side? You guys remember that? Do you remember what side this was used for with the manholes?
Coal.
Correct. So this would have been the exact same. This would have been coal chute side and this would have been tunnel side.
Oh my goodness. This is cool. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, you're gonna-
These windows are from the 1800s and they do pop out, and we will host bands back here. We're going to call it Tunes in the Tunnels. So it'll be really neat once we get it up and running again. So, yeah.
I don't know, if we watch so long. We put that on, that's where we're going. Thank you for turning that on. Yeah. Yeah. Thank goodness, it's definitely full. This is all on. Oh, good one.
So this is J.P. Weber Sunflower Song Room. There's a picture of J.P. Weber on the windowsill over here. I love this little poster. My favorite part is imported and domestic stars. Drop down to see the end of the Bank of Ellinwood, and its number is 9. So you're under the Bank of Ellinwood right now. So from the 40s on through to the 60s, Ellinwood did something they were really proud of. They actually made this and the adjoining room their very first public library. The book drop is still visible in the window here. It actually still exists. But before then, in the 30s, this actually was a dirt floor. So when they were making a library, they had to pour a concrete floor. And Chris said when he took over, it's kind of plain and flat looking. So he actually hired a gentleman to come in and hand paint this to make it look like wood and stuff.
Oh, my God.
So it is a concrete floor. The bar is specifically made for this as well, so this was actually built in here as well. Does anybody want to hear a ghost story? Sure. Some people do, some people don't. So I actually was sitting in here with my boyfriend and the bartender. We were the only 3 down here. Bartender goes to the back room, and we're hanging out, going up, and we hear, hello, hello, hello. And the bartender comes running out, and he's like, did you guys just say something? I said, oh, we got to go on your phone. And he said, no, I don't have anything like that on my phone. That's why I never said something. Why wasn't I recording that? Because it was very loud, very clear. So, does anybody see the moving paper mill? So, this actually is the cash register from the paper mill. See that up there? So, we have a lovely little movie truck. So, I actually went to the Midland and talked to the guy here at the desk.
Whoops.
Over her back hurts, but she finished it and she hated it, so she did it a second time. So, I recently asked her, I said, hey Beth, I wanted to take you to the stairs, and she said the first or second time. I said all together, and she said 2 weeks. So yeah, so not too bad, I don't think. She did a pretty good job. So we have a pretty big crowd here, so I'm going to tell you guys a little. Take us to the main
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, easier than the other one.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it. Not looking forward to pull. Yes. I actually paranormal investigate in my spare time, so.
Oh, I didn't see this one. Maybe this is that. This is the that is tall. I've got a pretty tall bed, but that's.
I would need a step stool.
There's a small problem with my room, so they're giving me the option to move to a different room at no additional cost. It's the same cost. So I go check out the room I had rented to see for myself before I made a decision. I thought it was really nice of them to let me decide and make the decision. So, very nice hospitality. You'll have to wait for an upcoming video, and I will let you know which room I chose and where I stayed the night.
That's the truth. I'm one too.
Was this grandma's? Is that what you said?
This is grandma's room. Yeah.
So, as you see, this is the shared bathroom. This is what would have been attached to the Delmonico's. You see it's long and narrow. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit into the parlor here. So, if you want to join me in the parlor.
Oh, here's the long narrow bathroom. Oh, yeah, that is skinny, isn't it? I said, you guys would have never made it here because people could glance in on you. Oh my gosh, so good.
I don't know where he goes. There's absolutely no way I'd get up the stairs. Yeah. And everybody likes to see it.
I know. I looked at this one first and I thought, well, that's a lot of space for just
It's a
me.
lot of space for one person. And
I was like, I mean, I'd do it, but I'm like, it's kind of much.
I've had one person run.
I would totally do it, but I was just like, I don't know.
And I've had families of 5 rent this, so because they can't sleep 5 people. So yeah.
And I guess if I wasn't a selfish person, I could have invited some friends,
Well,
but
there you go. See?
but I don't have as much fun with people.
Ladies' night, right?
This is the wedding suite.
No, this is the regular suite, I think.
It's got a round. Oh, funny. Like that one music commercial, have you seen that? About, it's one of the companies that has like retail prices. You should call them to get the right one, because it's like there's a family with little kids, and they're sitting on a bed like this in like Vegas, and they're going, what are we supposed to do with this? And it had a mirror on the ceiling.
So, I have people just, I just have.
Is this ours? Los Angeles? No.
317. We're 317.
So it's interesting.
That is going to do it for this episode. Thanks for coming along with me as we journeyed through time in the underground tunnels in Ellinwood, Kansas, and toured the Wolf Hotel. Let me know in the comments if you would have liked living some of your life below ground. Would you have used the tunnels? I'm curious to find out. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. I would greatly appreciate it. And I wouldn't want you to miss out on any upcoming videos. Until next time, bye for now.